Plug-in solar has finally been announced for the UK. You'll soon be able to go into a supermarket, buy a couple of panels and a small microinverter, take them home, plug them into the wall, and start generating your own power. But there are a few things you need to know before we get to that point. And let's set some expectations of what you will actually be able to generate and how much money a micro solar system is likely to save you. So back in the middle of March, Ed Miliband appeared on the Laura Kunsberg show, and he said the government was pushing for energy security and reducing reliance upon imports. And for the first time, plug-in solar was going to be officially supported and legally allowed in the UK. So we've been hearing this for a long time, but now it's no longer a rumour, it's actually happening. Now, there's been an awful lot of press about this, and quite frankly, a lot of it has been just wrong or misleading. When you hear politicians and people in the media say you'll be able to plug solar into your wall, it sounds like they're talking about taking a panel, putting a plug on the end of it, plugging it in, and off you go. But that's not how it works at all. You can't plug solar panels directly into a socket. What actually happens is you plug those panels into a microinverter, a small box that has connections to your solar panels on one side and a cable coming out the other, which then plugs into the wall. So really, it's the inverter that does all the hard work. It takes the DC energy from the panels, converts it into AC, and sends that into your home. But it's also doing a lot more. It's actually making sure that the system is safe. Now, one of the things the inverter does is it synchronizes the frequency of the power to what is being used in your house or coming in from the grid. And as if that synchronization goes away, that 50 hertz signal, then the inverter must shut down immediately. And this is to stop a situation where you might take the plug out of the wall. You don't want energy being converted from DC to AC and the pins of the plug being live. So as soon as that connection is broken, the inverter shuts down and nothing comes out, so the pins are safe to touch. Now today, even though Ed Miliband has made his big announcement, plug-in solar is still legally not allowed. Key standards still need updating, including BS 7671, which is the wiring regulations, need to be updated to allow generation via a plug. We need updates to the G98 and G99 connection rules for small generators. We need to make sure that all inverters that are on sale in the UK have anti-islanding, grid sync requirements, and that the products are certified under UKCA and CE approvals. And all of this needs to happen before the summer, because that's when Ed says this will go live. So today, you can't legally plug one in, but we're getting pretty close. Now, from a timeline perspective, it's likely to be mid to late summer 2026. None of the people who have to update their regulations, the DNOs or the wiring standards regulations, nobody's given any confirmed dates on when this will be completed. And then once all that's done, obviously the products need to make sure that they've got their certifications in place before they're sold into shops. But I think we're talking months here, not years. But let's set some expectations, because there's a lot of people talking about this topic and they're getting quite a bit of it wrong. So let's be very clear. A microgeneration system with a small microinverter is not a replacement for rooftop solar systems. Most systems on the market are going to be limited to about 800 watts. And there is a possibility we might get slightly more than that, but we're not going to get an order of magnitude more than that. And the reason I say that is when we look at other countries which our regulations will be based on, like Germany, France, 8 to 900 watts seems to be about the sweet spot for microinverters. So this means you're not running your whole house from a microinverter, you're not charging an EV, you're not heating your home. What you're really doing is covering your base load. Think, how much energy does your fridge, your Wi-Fi router, all the things that just consume energy in the background, that is really what this is going to offset. Realistically, it might save you between 100 and 150 pounds a year off of your energy bill. Now, there are a lot of unknowns right now. Will we be allowed to have multiple microinverters in a single property? Some countries allow stacking multiple units. This hasn't been mentioned in the UK, so we don't know at this point whether you'll be allowed to have 2 microinverters or 3 microinverters or n microinverters. It is still all undefined. Now, another thing to consider here is you are unlikely to get paid for export energy with a microinverter system. To get paid for export, to get an export meter installed, you generally need MCS certification for your installation. And because this is a DIY installation, you're not going to be installed by a qualified MCS installer, therefore you will not get MCS certification for it. Now, some energy companies like Octopus allow you to get an export meter set up and get on an export tariff if you pay them a fee for your non-MCS setup. This is generally in the sort of £200 range. But ask yourself, how long does it take to export enough energy to offset that £200 fee from an 800-watt system? The answer is a long time. You might be exporting energy for a few years until you've recouped that £200. So really, microinverters are about self-consumption. They're about generating enough energy to cover your base load during the day, not about making money from exports. Now, these systems have been around for a long time. They are legal in the UK, but they have some very specific requirements around it. Now, a lot of people have bought them knowing that they're not supposed to put a plug on the end of it. They're supposed to wire it into a fuse spur. They're supposed to have bidirectional RCBOs in their consumer units to fit with the current UK wiring regulations. But they buy them, they put a plug on the end of them, they plug them in, and they just work. And there have been no widespread reports of fires or major issues because somebody put a plug on the end of a microinverter and plugged it into the wall. In fact, I will hold my hand up. For about 2 years, I ran my EcoFlow Power Stream system with a plug on the end of it and had zero issues. And that ran alongside my Solar Edge inverter with no problems whatsoever. Now, something else to consider is if you did this properly today, you wired your system in through a fuse spur, you put the right RCBOs into your consumer unit, you would still need to do either a retrospective G98 approval with your DNO to let them know that you have microgeneration equipment on your site. Or if you already have an existing system like a rooftop solar system and you're adding this to that, you would need to get permission to do a G99 addendum to let them know that you're expanding the capacity of the microgeneration equipment on your site. Now, if plug and play solar is truly going to be plug and play, this needs to be updated because people who buy a system in Aldi aren't going to know anything about having to submit a retrospective G98. So I think that whole side of the regulation is going to need to be updated pretty quickly. If we're really going to make this plug and play, then we can't have a whole stack of bureaucratic paperwork that you need to fill in after the fact just to be able to use a plug and play system. So this is what the government is trying to change. They're saying the goal is really simple. We want you to plug it in and it works. As soon as you plug it in, it starts generating and it starts reducing your electricity bills. That means simplified or removal of DNO notifications, standardized safety requirements, clear installation guidelines, instructions to landlords to stop them blocking tenants from installing this system in either in the garden or on a balcony. We need to update the planning rules because the planning rules currently state that if you have a ground mounted solar system, it needs to be 5 meters from your boundary line. Now, for most people, that's just not possible. So again, there's lots of little pieces of this puzzle that all need to come together by this summer and make sure that when we start selling plug-in solar systems, it really is plug and play. Now, why this really matters is not in cases like mine, where I've got a rooftop solar system and this is just a pet project that sits on the side. This really opens up solar to people living in rental properties, in flats, people who don't have access to rooftop solar, who just a couple of panels in their garden might cut their base load by 90%. It's about bringing down that cost, that entry point into solar and making it available to as many people as possible. And this is really the gateway into getting people into this hobby that most of the people who watch this channel are in, where we're all invested in generating our own energy and reducing our energy bills and having less reliance upon the grid. So what can you do right now? Well, I would say if you are planning to put in a micro generation system, is the first thing is to understand your base load, either through an energy monitoring plug or something that can be installed in your consumer unit. Find out how much energy your house consumes when it's just ticking over. Start looking at where can the panels go. Can they go in the garden on a ground mount? Can they go on the fence like mine? Can they hang on the edge of a balcony? Can you put them on the roof of the shed? Start thinking about locations and start mapping out where is the sun at certain times of the day. There is no point putting panels on the shed roof if the shed is completely shaded by trees for 90% of the day. And also, when you're thinking about where to site panels, think about the seasonality of it. Then start thinking about batteries, because trust me, once you go down this rabbit hole of solar, batteries are the next thing. Batteries mean that you can save the energy that you're producing to use later on. Now and again, the battery may have a microinverter built into it. So like my EcoFlow stream system, it has the microinverter and the battery all in one unit. But you may have a separate battery. So start thinking about how you're going to connect these up. Are they going to be a standalone solar system with a microinverter feeding power into a socket and maybe a standalone battery connected into a different socket? Now, my recommendation here is buy an all-in-one system. Something like the Stream system, or there are other systems from companies like Bluetti, from Jackery, cut a system that has it all in one device. The reason is then you get the efficiencies of DC solar power charging the batteries using DC. So you're not losing anything by converting the energy from AC to DC. And every time you do that conversion, you would get a loss of somewhere in the region of about 10%. Keep an eye out on this channel. If you haven't subscribed, there is a big button below. You can press that. I will obviously be bringing out videos when the final regulations come out, a list of approved products, and I'm planning a whole series of videos this summer where we're going to be looking specifically at small microinverters, plugging them in, showing you how to set them up, and showing you, what you can realistically expect from them. Now, just remember here, this is not a silver bullet. It's cheap, it's simple, it's accessible, but it will have a small impact. It will not reduce your energy bill to zero overnight. But think of this as a first step into solar. You can always expand it later. You don't need to go big on day one. 1 or 2 panels, a microinverter is a great way to get into this. But if you're expecting this to wipe out your energy bill, you're going to be disappointed. But if you want an easy way to start generating your own power, to start reducing your impact on the grid and have lower electricity bills, this could be the gateway. Anyway, with that, I'm going to sign off. Please do let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you are planning to install one of these systems, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear what your expectations of the microgeneration system is, what you think you're going to get from it. And again, if I'm lucky, I will see you back here real soon for another video. Take care. Bye-bye.